today, as Esa mentioned, it's more of a reflection of what I've been doing, not just for the past 3 years, but for the past 6 years. Currently, I'm on a career break, but I'm going to start something new next Monday. So this is a perfect time, to pause, reflect, and discuss. Today, I'm going to talk to you about what I believe were the 3 foundational components of a successful customer journey ops. I am not going to actually talk really in depth about customer journey ops, but what are the elements that when you're leading customer-centric transformation, you need to put in place before you can actually run the operations. So basically, as I mentioned earlier, customer centricity is actually not just a goal in itself. It's an entire transformative destination. What I mean by that is that it doesn't happen overnight. It actually takes years that you actually build those things, because change takes time and leading change is very hard. So through that reflection, I invite you to explore with me 3 things. How to construct, a robust customer journey framework. And I didn't start by the actual customers, but the customer journey framework, and I'll explain to you why. Then we'll explore together how to form an optimal customer understanding. And thirdly, how to craft a CX dashboard. And again, this is not just about the transaction, it's all about forging lasting connection. And when I talk about those connections, it's not only about the connection with your customers, but it's also the connection with your peers inside the organization. So I'm really thinking from inside the organization how to build that. So those 3 questions that I had in my introduction, they are really resonating with 3 challenges. And please just to feel a bit the room, raise your hand when I go through those if you feel that you've had the similar kind of challenge in your organization. The first one is that maybe not everyone, I generalize, but everyone maps their own maps around specific products. It's actually interesting to see that we're not mapping journeys often around key segments or key customers, but we're actually starting that as service designers or designers within a product line. So how do you think about the larger organization? And then it's also interesting when you're on the business side and you're actually leading this transformation to see that every unit owns the customer experience. Every unit has their own actions and they follow their own frameworks. So how do you put that together? How do you create a common language? The second point is that there is not one single place for your customer understanding. It's spread around the organization. So how do you make one out of that? And each unit tends to have their own customer data and in their own tools. So again, when you look at the organization perspective, this is a bit like that. I haven't seen any hand raise. Does that resonate with some people? Yeah, I see people nodding, but yeah, good. And the third one is that the customer and the business data are often gathered around a certain product. That's inherent also to business. You need to report on your metrics around a product, and oftentimes not around a customer. So how do you pivot that understanding? And then the data are mostly gathered and managed on the touch point level. So how do you think in terms of journey? So yeah, I've spent a bit more time than I planned on that, but yeah. So the starting point for us was to create a customer journey framework. And essentially here, I'm again reflecting on my own experience. I moved from a service designer on mapping journeys into actually a CX lead position where I was actually leading and creating this framework for the organization. So my perspective shifted. And here, I don't know if you recognize, this is inspired by Carrie Bodin. I really welcome you to look at her website and articles, but this was really trying to craft something so simple that everyone could actually pick it up. And here, really, I think you all know here the definition of customer journey, but what I really like is about the sequence of steps, which are noted there, but during the process of the customer interacting with the organization. It doesn't state that the customer is interacting with the product here. It's larger than that. It's the organization, it's your customer care, it's your shop's attendees. It's the product, yes, but it's not only that. Again, that might not resonate to everyone. I come from here from a B2C perspective, so it might not be applicable to everyone, but I think at least the framework level might be resonating with your. So how do you create a framework? So I think the fact of taking some times off and reflecting, I looked at all the process that we went through. And the first one was really about gathering and listening. When you're leading the change, you have to gather with empathy from the different stakeholders what are their worries, what are the actual frameworks that they are using currently, and where are the common ground. So how to build the first element that we can start creating a common language. So really gathering the key stakeholder within the organization, and you're actually building your first connection. The second part is about this more linear kind of perspective on the customer journey. So how do you identify the actual linear steps? And I think that might shock a bit some people because you always have to start by the customers and you should start by the customer. Yes, but if you don't have the higher management on board, it's going to be really hard to engage them afterwards. So how can you start from the inside and then validate it with the customers? So essentially here the red dots are representing the customer steps. And the blue ones, or green, I don't know, I'm not so sure about my color, are the business steps. So I think what we've tried to also build is that there is always a resonating kind of vocabulary between the business language, that for whom you're actually delivering the work, and the customer words. And here really, really important to validate in the customer words, because the customer words is the words that your frontline people are really used to hear, and it's also much easier than when you talk with the customer rather than when you use a business word. And the third one, it was really, as everybody knows, customer journeys is not a linear process. It has a lot of kinds of coming in and coming out. But we wanted to do something more circular and something very visual for the company. So essentially, so that was the first step, as I was mentioning. The framework for the organization, and I'm very happy about that visual. I have worked a lot with designers, so for me it's very important. It's not just about talking about it, but it's also representing something visual that people can take with them and actually apply in their day-to-day job. So at the center here, you actually have the customer, and that's very essential to us. And then around it, you have the different journey steps. So basically, from the beginning here to the end, you have the end-to-end customer journey with the key steps. And then around that, you have actually the business steps where each of your business units are going to actually try to deliver the best customer experience on all those steps. So essentially, you have three parts here. You have to put the customer at the center. You need to align the customer journey steps with the business steps, and also allow this common language. And those business steps and those customer steps, as I said earlier, it's very important that you don't craft that on your own room by yourself and then you come and say, hey, here is a framework, just apply it. But it really, really requires a lot of engagement and discussion and politics to bring the right people around it. So I think that was maybe for me the hardest and the most difficult thing to do when leading the change. So the second part that I was mentioning about is the customer understanding. And oftentimes we say, yeah, you need to start by the customer. Once again, I think here the importance is that we had a lot of units who had some customer understanding, but we wanted to create something that were bigger than that. I have to mention here that I wasn't leading that part. I was part of a much bigger team, and but this element is really core for my job at the time as a CX lead to understand that. So it's very important that someone in the company is working on that. So the first part is understanding the whole customer base through customer segment. And the second part was, how do you organize your voice of the customer around this framework that you've built? So let me take you through that. Here is just really a brief example of the customer segmentation. And for some of you who are service designers or designers, you probably have been building a lot of personas. But the idea here is to balance the qualitative kind of format of the personas together with the quantitative data. So basically here, the idea is that you have to balance really the attributes of the persona from the in-depth interviews. So here we had UX researchers and customer insights researchers taking part in the research through actually in-depth interviews and surveys. And the second part is that we had the data and analytic engineers helping us with the really hard data. And here, essentially, it was balancing the in-depth qualitative data together with the actual weight and volume of your quantitative data. So just to give you an example, again, this is just an example. We had, I think, between 5 and 7 segments in the end. We call them life stage, and the life stage segmentation is very interesting here because you can also look at your customer base on, okay, this segment or this person it's in this life stage and it might move towards the next one. So you can also do some prediction based on the previous customer segment behavior. So you might have some demographics, needs and wants and pain points, mostly from the usual persona works that you're used to. But what does this other data analytics bring to it is really this understanding in terms of, okay, if we focus on that segment, how much that segment represents the total customer base. So you have an idea, what is the value of that customer? How much product they own from your product portfolio? How much money they spend on a monthly basis? How long they've been your customer? These are never things that at least I was doing when I was doing persona work. And then eventually, what are their favorite channels and what are the risks that you might face? So again, this is just exemplary. I don't have the data here, but this is really showing like how can you bridge those different customer data to make a real understanding of your total customer base. And then the second part, this is this concept of customer listening path. I don't know. Does any of you is familiar with that customer listening path? Of course, we used to work together. Okay, so I have to say that this was something I discovered really when I went to the business side, and I really recommend. It's based on I don't remember her first name. The last name is Bliss, and she's the author of Chief Customer Officer. And the idea here is that you start with the customer journey steps. She actually talk about stage, but that's kind of like vocabulary. And then again, you engage with the different part of the organization. So to give you an example, you might have in your organization customer insight people working for marketing and gathering NPS data, and they have an understanding of your customer and some feedback. Then you also have your call center or care center agent or the people in the shop. They also have another understanding of your customers. So how do you bring those two parts of the organization together? Well, through the listening path. They're actually bringing their own data, and you actually start having a discussion. They can argue. The customer care can bring the volume, and the customer insight can bring like the highlights, where to focus on. But by putting those different type of data together, you can actually triangulate your data. So it's not just about the most vocal customers that have actually answered your NPS survey, but it's also the actual cases, the volumes of people who have called. And you can add layers of data. It can be data and analytic or different. I just gave two examples. And when you start to have similar kind of data that, I don't know, the discovering phase is very hard to find product on your web page and people are increasingly calling because they don't find the product they want to buy, well, you for sure have an opportunity here to take on that. So this was really, for me, the first steps of the customer experience dashboard. So this is really the last part, the part that I'm the most, let's say, proud of. And I think that's really the key for my next chapter for next week. So this is about the customer experience dashboard. I don't know how many of you have built their own dashboard, but this is really something that I'm happy. Again, it might not be the best, but at least we were really happy of building it the way we did. So here again and again and again, first engage with the stakeholder, because if you build your own dashboard and then you say, hey, here is a dashboard, nobody's going to use it. We used to talk about this syndrome in the place I used to work of not invented here. So if they haven't been part of the project, they will not just use it. And then all your effort and all your wish to help other units is just going to fail. So here, essentially, as I've mentioned earlier, we have the steps here, but you cannot basically, or at least we felt that we couldn't do a CX dashboard that would cover the whole entire customer journey. And we wanted to look into what are the key journeys. And thinking about the key journeys, that doesn't mean that these are the only customer journeys that your customer will go through. And I think Annie in her presentation will show us a much bigger element. But here, essentially, we wanted to focus on some key customer journeys. By the way, these are not the one that we used in the previous company. These are AI generated, so you would need to do your own work for that. But the idea is that the journeys themselves, and here I think we have 5, they also overlap. So, for example, the purchase journey, it's very important that the person who buys the product takes it into use, but it's going to be also in the next journey, because otherwise it just doesn't work. But anyhow, so for the dashboard, we wanted to focus on identify the key customer journeys, and then we wanted to getting from the business to know what are the key metrics according to those journeys. And again, it's not about managing on the touchpoint level. It's really moving from managing on the journey level. So here is, again, it's AI generated for those metrics, but I've kind of tweaked them based on my understanding and the B2C, depending on your area of work. And we'll share the slide later, no worries, and this is recorded. So depending on the kind of business you're in, you will have to adapt those. But essentially, there are 3 parts. So here, we are not focusing anymore on the customer journey steps. We are focusing on the key journeys that I presented in the previous slide. And we are not focusing on the business goal. That's very important. We are focusing on the key customer goal. So, and the business goal will kind of resonate with the customer goal, but really, essentially, we want to ask, what is the key customer goal? And for each of those key journeys, we're going to look into 3 types of metrics. The voice of the customer metrics, we call them like that, and I've given some example. The financial metrics, because essentially you want business also to use that dashboard, and the operational metrics. So what from these 3 types of metrics would the best help you evaluate if the customer has actually reached their goals, and if you as a company has actually delivered the customer experience needed for that goal. So I think that was very important for us. And basically, you could add here the key business journeys. So with purchase is acquisition, with usage is retention, with change it's going to be upsell and cross-sell, support, and resignation, either win back or churn. So you really transform the whole usual business language into the customer words. So that's basically it. I hope this was useful, but okay, we are here today about customer journey ops. So to link, so this was again about my reflection, my personal reflection about leading customer-centric transformation. It was a huge team. As you can see, it takes the organization participation to do that. But how does that link to customer journey operation? But essentially, when you do the customer experience management, the framework will be the base for shaping the operational governance of your customer journey operations. The insights or the customer understanding will help you guide the strategic prioritization around the most valuable customers. And third, the dashboard, in that case, when you do customer journey operation, will help you monitor your action and your operational efficiency. Thank you.